Well, I'm glad you have your priorities straight in the. Good morning. Thank you to the members of the committee for waiting for several minutes now on probably empty stomachs. We're going to go ahead and kick off with a prayer. Would any member like to start us off? Representative Townsend, what number are you?
I have no number. 25, I think, though. Or 27. 27.
They ripped you off.
They did. Please bow your heads. Dear Father, thank you for this day. Please us committee as we make decisions for the citizens of Georgia. Be with us and the guests throughout the day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
In the posture of the committee, we're waiting for the author or a co-signer, which is likely Senator Anna Vitarde, which is calling in now. All right. We're waiting for Senator Anna Vitarde, who's coming in the building. Until that time, I do want to, this is likely going to be our last Special Rules Committee meeting for the session. I want to appreciate two people, Michael to my left, who has done a great job. Michael's also the House Budget and Research analyst for a very inactive committee, a local, what is it, local legislation. I'm sure no one here has dropped any, so we're glad to give you something to do on all your idle time. And truly, Michael has done a great job. I think this has been a record for special rules. I'm sure that's hard to believe in terms of the number of bills being assigned, and truly him and Miss Parker, who is in our office, have done a great job. He has helped us plan a overview of the Veterans Hall of Fame. I don't know who was able to attend the Veterans Hall of Fame relocation. Is that correct? Down on the first floor of the Capitol. But as the House Committee over state symbols, I couldn't see a more fitting piece of updated symbolic meaning than the movement of the Veterans Hall of Fames to the heart of our Capitol on the first floor. So we will likely reschedule that for next session. And that did come from a suggestion from a member of the committee. We wanted to go ahead and do it as a co-presentation to the Veterans Affairs and Defense Committee, so that's why we didn't do it today. So if anyone has any other suggestions, either off session or for next session, but if there's items in Georgia that you would like looked at by the committee to discuss, please send it to our office, and we will put that into consideration. That being said, Senator Watson feels strongly he would like to present the legislation. That is why we're not moving, trying to not to move until he gets here. And I am understanding of the fact that he realized today, just through administrative, not on our end, but I guess administrative error on their end, that he was going to present. Let me poll the committee. If we recess till 8:45, who is able to come back? By show of hands. Who is not able to come back at 8:45? Lean on not being sure is a no. So who's not able to come back by show of hands? This is more controversial than a vote. So we're going to go ahead and given the lack of confidence of myself of having a quorum, we're going to go ahead and hear the bill. Senator Inavitarte, if you're good with starting us off, if there's enough questions, or if you speak long enough, maybe he will get here. And again, we understand it's an administrative error. It's not a lack of intention from Senator Watson. That's part of the hazard of having an 8 a.m. Monday meeting. So we do appreciate your ability to come and present this important piece of legislation. So with that, Senator, do you have the LC in front of you, or do you need a copy?
I don't, but I can.
We'll get you a copy right behind you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shania. By the way, you're the second person I meant to thank in the room. So we'll go
I've
ahead.
got LC 500438, and thank you, Chairman Sains, for hearing this. Yeah, the downtown connector right now is a disaster. So, but real quick, this bill's been heard in the Senate. It's been also heard in the House previously, and all this bill does is basically erect a monument honoring the Honorable Clarence Thomas. Basically, there's no public funds involved. Basically, once adopted, the Art Standards Commission would basically approve the monument as they do any other monument, and that's pretty much it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Senator. We have several questions, starting with Representative Townsend.
Senator, thanks again for you and Senator Watson bringing this bill and at the appropriate time.
It's not. One moment. Representative Al.
Morning. Glad I made it. I remember debating this bill over the past, has it been like 3 years now?
At least two.
At least two.
Yep.
One question I have is, obviously, Clarence Thomas is a historic figure and has overcome a lot and definitely deserves the level of recognition and historic prominence that he has. My question is whether or not it means something specific to have a statue on the Capitol grounds, which I believe is this bill's intent. And given that he is a figure that's embroiled in some controversy at the moment as serving a Supreme Court justice related to some ethics questions regarding some financial impropriety, and also an involvement in election interference cases that are before the court. I wonder if it's appropriate and what message that sends to erect a statue of someone at the Capitol whose legacy is not yet fully borne out or cemented.
Well, thank you for the question, Representative Al. So just to be clear, I think we've erected statues on these state capitol grounds in the past for probably individuals whose legacies were not fomented in time. And I think one example we've used in the Senate, you've already heard the debate, and we've used in the House, is with President Carter when he was governor. And I know there was a debate as to whether we should erect statues for living individuals. And as we went through that debate, I know that came up. I think the other thing, too, is, Clarence Thomas has been never indicted. He's never been tried. He's never been found guilty. And I think a lot of the claims you're making, I think, are, number one, many of them are inappropriate. Number two, they're partisan. Number three, I think those are basically, talking points that the left wants to give. So if we're going to talk about his life, and I think what he's done for the United States of America, being one of 4 Supreme Court justices that's either born, raised, or lived in the state of Georgia, we can talk about that. But if you want to sit here and have a conversation about hypotheticals or what he did or didn't do with election interference, I don't think this is the appropriate place.
Just as a follow-up, no one's disputing his historic import or his import to the state of Georgia. I just think that given that these issues are currently being borne out as we speak, whether or not it's worth taking a beat and seeing how that plays out before we erect a statue on the Capitol grounds, which, unlike a statue in other locations, means something very specific. And what that would convey to the public, to voters, to our constituents, to have that statue here rather than in another prominent place, for example, in his hometown.
Representative Lupton? What number?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I was, of course, as surprised as anybody else. I didn't know that Clarence Thomas had anything to do with Georgia. When was he here?
So just a couple of historic facts. He was born in Pinpoint, Georgia. Senator Watson, I know he has a close relation. I'll let him talk about that. But I think his personal story is growing up through the challenges that he did in Pinpoint, Georgia. His family that, dealt with slavery, all those personal things, grew up and eventually became a United States Supreme Court justice. So he's I believe of the 4 the only one born and raised in the state of Georgia.
In Georgia? Okay. A follow-up. I know several people in the House of Representatives who have been trying for several years, maybe even longer than this has been going on, to try to get some sort of more meaningful memorial to the original 33, who arguably have an even greater impact on the history of this state. And they have gotten absolutely nowhere.
If we could
with that.
utilize the committee's time to talk about legislation in front of us, not
Sure.
legislation.
Is
not in
there a
front of us.
reason that we don't have that, but we should put this forward over something like that?
I think that's a probably bigger, different discussion. I know that I've had conversations, not to betray any conversations. I know myself and Senator Anderson, Tanya Anderson, we've had that conversation in the past couple of years. I don't know that, I don't have any issue with that, but I have not seen a discussion just kind of, making a more prominent, whether it's monument or something to that effect, in the state capitol, around the state capitol, or on another piece of state property. But, I would say it does warrant a conversation at some point, at least in my opinion.
Representative Diana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know my concerns are just in terms of his contributions in Georgia. I know you mentioned what specifically did he do for slavery? And when I look at equity in the state, I know his position on affirmative action, which he was a recipient of. His position is not in line with what some of our history has had throughout the course of this country. So my concern again is what significant contribution did he make in slavery?
Well,
and then philanthropically, what has he done in Georgia?
So what I'm going to say overall is just in terms of his family and the impacts of overcoming slavery, the racism and things that I know he impacted as a was impacted by as a young child with his grandparents and growing up. All of those things in South Georgia, in Pinpoint, and I think just the testament that he rose up out of that to work through the court system and eventually be appointed to the highest court in the land. I mean, I think is a pretty significant undertaking that we'll rarely find anywhere in American history. I think his, in terms of his, charitable giving and things that he's done here in Georgia, I know he does have friends here. I know that, he's done a lot within the judicial system. I know there are many members of the Georgia General Assembly, in particular the House of Representatives, that has a high, belief and honor of, his works. And I know we can have a debate over, different Supreme Court cases maybe he's ruled on, from time to time, but I'm sure we could, find other Supreme Court cases that, the more left-leaning judges have done and have a debate on those. I think it's just, where has he come from and where has he, come to in American history? And, I think, we have had Supreme Court justices that, are known to be from Georgia or lived in Georgia that are known to be racist and other things. And I think just, him having, risen above the fray to be where he's at in life, I think is significant and worthy of this honor, like many historic figures in Georgia history.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Lott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here and presenting this bill. So I have a few questions. I'll start with one. Has there been anyone else from Georgia that has made it to the level of the Supreme Court that you know of?
I don't have my notes in front of me. I know there are at least 3 others that have either born and raised in another state or have moved here or served on the court for literally maybe a year or 2 or a few months. But I know he's the only one that's, was raised here and then went on to do what he did.
So I'm sort of confused by the conversation here. I think this is seems like an easy one to me. So certainly if we were going to follow the left-leaning media and the Democrat machine, we would have no Republican statues anywhere in the United States, likely, because there are a lot of accusations that are made without due process. So I appreciate the fact that you made reference to the fact that he has been certainly held accountable. Proven to be at fault in any of the accusations that have been made to him. And there will be many more made about him. There will be many more made about many others, of course, in elected office or any position like that, high position. So I would like to say that I think that this is incredibly impressive. As we know, Clarence Thomas was born in 1948. He went through an incredible time. I understand, I don't know his entire position on affirmative action. I believe that was referenced, so I would have to guess that, of course, he is proud of the work that he has done by his merit and coming up in a time that was really difficult. And I can't say anything except I appreciate you bringing the legislation. I can't even imagine how we are questioning one of Georgia's own that has risen through the civil rights movement and gotten to this level in the United States. And thank you for being here and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lott. Representative Townsend, you're recognized for a question.
Question, Senator. From my kind of reading and what I've seen before, I think he actually led the EEOC at one point, which is a defender of the Civil Rights Act. So that's just another good carrot, I think, when you talk about Justice Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, his life, his mind, his heart, I think is doing what's best for America. I think that's been, I think very clear. I think it's probably with most Americans. I think like we've seen with any, historic figures of our time, or at least of my generation, even going back to Ronald Reagan or President Bush or President Clinton or, pick any other leader in between. We all know that they've been, hit with either controversy or they've been challenged or, their names run through the ground at some level. And I think through all of that, he's, risen above and through it. Just because I think that's, as a leader, that's, what he's done. And he's led the court through some, pretty difficult challenges in cases that we've seen through, some of our lifetimes. So, my belief is that, again, I think he's, worthy of this honor. We can have individuals continue to, call him names. I know when we debated this bill on the floor of the Senate, I heard some of the most deplorable conversation from the minority party with an individual, including the, language of, using the phrase Uncle Tom and other things during that debate. But I think as, we have this conversation, on this, I think it's bigger than all of us. And I think the time is appropriate. And I'm going to let the bill author, Senator Watson from Savannah, say anything he wants.
Sure. Senator Watson, thank you for being here, and we do understand the hazards of a Monday meeting, so thank you for realizing we had this today, and it looks like based on the amount of paperwork you got, you're at least prepared for it. Do you need a second to reorient? We're in the posture of taking questions from the bill. Senator Enovatard has done a great job of presenting the legislation, but if you have a comment prior to continuing questioning, we got a couple more.
I do not. Let me apologize first to the committee and chairman, and thank Chairman Anavatarte. We've worked on this for a couple of sessions now, and the aspect of, listen, I'm from Savannah. Clarence Thomas is from Savannah. His mother, I know really well, the family well. Good family, well respected in our community, and I think this is well deserving. But I don't mean to belabor this. I'll be happy to answer any questions also.
All right, thank you, Senator. Representative Scoggins, fellow judge.
Yes, thank you, Judge. This is a fitting bill for a great Georgian and a great American. And I would like to see us move forward to this. So I want to reiterate Representative Townsend's motion to do pass.
When it will be the appropriate time, it will be recognized. But I do want to, if there's any member of the committee or the room that would like to testify, I did get a submission from Frontline that they would like placed in the record. I'm going to go ahead and read that. If there's no objection from the committee. Frontline writes to the members of the House Special Rules Committee to urge favorable consideration of SB 69, an excellent bill to honor an incredible Georgian. Thomas's life records are astounding triumphs and an embodiment of the American dream, and amazing testimony to the type of individual accomplishments and dedication we should never hesitate to revere and honor. Few Georgians have lived a life of such noteworthy distinction, and few are so worthy of celebration. Having risen from the depths of the extreme poverty in Savannah, Georgia, and from under the burden of segregation of the dark time in our nation's history, Clarence Thomas climbed by the determination, integrity, and force of character to the pinnacle of public service, now sitting on the nation's highest court. The most prolific writer and longest-serving member of the Supreme Court today, his impact on our nation does our state a great deal of credit. It is fitting and proper to memorialize such achievement for the generations of Georgia citizens to admire, consider, and emulate. Please pass SB 69 to honor one of the greatest living Georgians. With that, I'm going to close with suggesting to members of committee, if they have not read My Grandfather's Son, it is a great biography of the judge. I'll also, I know some mention has been placed on questioning his ability, his advocacy of the harms and disgust of our nation's history to slavery and relating it to his stance on affirmative action as someone who is against the policy of affirmative action. I take personal the right word, offense to connecting it to being against a disgusting part of our history of slavery. But I'll leave it at that. And now being the appropriate time, I'm recognizing Representative Townsend.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Several seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any in opposition, nay. I see the ayes carry. The bill passes. Thank you. Who's carrying it in the House? All right, Representative Petrie.